Welcome to Hidden Wounds. My name is Arthur, and at 62 years old, I've come to understand that the most devastating injuries aren't caused by a punch or a kick. They are inflicted with words, revealing a person's true nature when they believe they have complete control and authority. I arrived at my daughter Jessica's house that Tuesday morning, carrying a container of my homemade oatmeal cookies and a small envelope containing the receipt for my pension withdrawal. It was a modest amount, around 80, but I had a feeling it could help with their growing financial problems. Jessica and her husband, Kevin, had been struggling recently, and I had watched the stress lines on my daughter's face deepen with each month that passed. The television was blaring loudly in their living room, the local news anchor's voice filled with barely contained excitement. "Tonight's lottery drawing is set to be one of the biggest in state history," he announced. "A jackpot of 43 million. Jessica was sitting on the edge of the couch, her hands clutching a wrinkled lottery ticket as if her life depended on it. Kevin was pacing behind her, that familiar, arrogant stride in his step despite their financial troubles. He had always been all bravado and no substance, but Jessica had gone and married him anyway. "This is it, babe," Kevin said, leaning down to kiss the top of Jessica's head. "I can feel it in my bones. This is our golden ticket out of this mess." I put my briefcase on the kitchen counter and opened the cookie container, placing the cookies on one of Jessica's good plates. It was a set of fine china I had given her for her wedding 5 years ago. "Dad," Jessica said, without looking away from the TV, "you really didn't have to bring anything. We're doing just fine." But they weren't fine. A pile of unpaid bills on their kitchen counter told a very different story. There was the second mortgage paperwork that Kevin thought I hadn't noticed. The credit card statements were hastily shoved into drawers. "I just thought you might like some cookies," I said simply, straightening my tie, a nervous habit I'd picked up over the years. "And I brought that pension withdrawal we discussed." Kevin's head snapped up at the mention of money, but before he could say anything, the television erupted with a loud fanfare. The lottery drawing was about to begin. "Here we go," Jessica whispered, her knuckles turning white as she gripped the ticket. I watched as the numbers were called one by one. 7, 23, 31, 42, 16, and the Powerball 9. Jessica's face went through a series of rapid changes. First confusion, then disbelief, and finally sheer, absolute joy. "Oh my God," she breathed out. "Oh my God, Kevin. We won. We won." Kevin snatched the ticket from her hands, scanning the numbers over and over again. His face broke into a triumphant smile that made a cold feeling settle deep in my stomach. $43 million, he yelled, spinning Jessica around their living room. "We're set for life, baby. We're rich." I stood quietly in their kitchen, watching my daughter and son-in-law celebrate their sudden fortune. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. "Dad?" Jessica finally noticed me, her eyes bright with excitement. "Can you believe it? We actually won." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, even though my voice sounded strange to my own ears. "I'm so happy for you both." Kevin was already on his phone, likely calling his brother or business partners to share the news. Jessica was pulling out her laptop, no doubt researching what to do with a lottery jackpot. "This changes absolutely everything," Jessica said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "We can pay off the house, the credit cards, everything. We can travel, maybe buy that beach house in Florida that Kevin has always wanted." I nodded and began to gather my things, getting ready to leave. It was obvious they had other things on their minds now. "Actually, Dad," Kevin said, hanging up his phone and turning to face me with that confident smirk of his, "we won't be needing your pension money after all." Something in his tone made me freeze. "That's perfectly fine, dear," I said. In fact," Kevin interrupted, stepping closer, "we won't be needing you around here anymore either." The words hit me like a solid blow. I looked at Jessica, waiting for her to correct him, to stand up for me, to show some sign of the daughter who had once needed me for everything. Instead, she simply nodded along with her husband's words. "Kevin's right, Dad," she said. "We're starting a new life now, a life without complications." "Complications?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Jessica had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, but Kevin stepped forward, his chest puffed out with a newfound arrogance. "Look, Arthur," he said, using my first name as if it were a weapon. "You're a broke old man living on Social Security and pension scraps. We don't need your $8,000, and we certainly don't need you hanging around playing the poor widower." I felt something inside me harden into ice. "I see," I said. "We have bigger plans now," Kevin continued, getting into his stride. "Important people to meet, places to go. You can just go back to your little apartment and your poker night and your sad little life." I reached for my briefcase, my hands surprisingly steady, despite the fury building in my chest. "Of course, I should go," I said. "Yeah, you should," Jessica said, her voice carrying a cruelty I had never heard before. "We don't need your pension cash anymore, you broke old man. Just get lost and disappear." The words hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. My own daughter had just told me to just get lost and disappear, tossing me aside like garbage, and she had done it with a smile on her face. I walked toward the front door on unsteady legs, Jessica and Kevin following right behind me, as if they were escorting an unwanted salesman. As I reached for the door handle, something made me pause. "Did you read the name on the back of that lottery ticket?" I asked quietly. Without turning around, I felt them freeze behind me. In the reflection of their front window, I could see the color drain from their faces. "What do you mean?" Kevin's voice had lost some of its swagger. I turned around slowly, meeting their eyes with a calm I didn't feel. "I asked if you read the name on the back of that ticket." Jessica's hand went to her throat. "Dad, what are you talking about?" she whispered. I smiled, a small, controlled expression that would have warned anyone who truly knew me to tread very carefully. "Nothing important," I said, and opened the door. "Congratulations on your big win." I walked to my car with slow, deliberate steps, aware that they were watching me from their window. Once I was safely inside, I opened my glove compartment and touched a thin manila envelope with my careful handwriting on it, labeled "Copies." Some people are quick to believe that age makes you weak, that being 62 means becoming invisible, that being a widower renders you powerless. Jessica and Kevin had just made that very mistake. They were about to learn that I had spent 4 decades as a financial administrator, navigating bureaucracy and complex paperwork like a second language. I knew the power of a document, the authority of a signature, and the finality of proper procedures. More importantly, they were about to discover that the lottery ticket they were so eager to claim had a very specific signature on the back, written in blue archival ink. People often don't truly understand the power of a signature until it's too late. They think of it as a simple formality, a quick scribble at the bottom of a page. But I had learned long ago that a signature is a declaration of ownership, a claim of responsibility, a legal fingerprint that cannot be easily erased or denied. I had purchased that winning lottery ticket at 7:12 a.m. at Mr. Henderson's corner market, just as I did every Tuesday for the past 3 years. Mr. Henderson, the owner, always greeted me with a warm smile and a genuine interest in my cologne, the same scent I had worn since my wedding day 38 years ago. That particular morning, I had bought 2 tickets. One was a quick pick for myself, which I signed immediately in blue archival ink with the very same pen I had used for financial documents for decades. The second ticket was an impulse buy and was left unsigned, intended as a small gift for Jessica. Mr. Price. Henderson always circled my numbers with his felt-tip pen, a small gesture that made the routine feel personal. After he gave me my receipt and change, I carefully photographed both sides of my signed ticket with my phone, making sure the timestamp metadata was clear. Old habits die hard when you've spent years on documentation. The signed ticket, my ticket, was the one that had won the $43 million. The unsigned gift ticket I had intended for Jessica was a loser. But in their greed and excitement, Jessica and Kevin had just assumed the winning ticket was theirs simply because it was in their house. They hadn't bothered to check for the signature on the back. After leaving their house, I drove directly to the First National Bank, where I had maintained accounts for more than 2 decades. Davis at customer service knew me well, and she expedited access to my safety deposit box without the usual fuss. Inside that fireproof steel box, I placed 2 notarized copies of my ticket scans, a sworn statement detailing the purchase, and a carefully prepared letter to the State Lottery Commission's General Counsel. I had learned during my years in finance that when dealing with legal matters, you always go straight to the top. From the bank, I made 2 very important phone calls. The first was to Attorney Wilson, a private trust attorney whose reputation for protecting assets was legendary. I had worked with her during my time on the financial board, and I knew she could handle complex financial situations in her sleep. Arthur. Attorney Wilson's voice was warm but professional. "It's been too long. What can I do for you?" "I need to contest a lottery ticket," I said. "I need you to freeze any attempts to cash it and establish protective trusts for the money." "How quickly do we need to move?" she asked. "They'll probably try to cash it as soon as the Lottery Commission opens tomorrow morning." There was a pause, then I heard the sound of her fingers flying over her keyboard. "I can have a temporary restraining order ready by 8 a.m., she said. "Bring me everything you have." The second call was to a reporter named Evans, an investigative journalist for the local television station who had covered several of my organization's charity events. She had a reputation for thorough research and ethical reporting, exactly what I needed. "Reporter Evans, it's Arthur from the Financial Board," I said. "I have a story that might interest you." "Mr. Arthur, how nice to hear from you." "What kind of story?" she asked. "The kind where people assume a 62-year-old man can be easily dismissed, and they make that assumption at exactly the wrong moment." Reporter Evans's voice sharpened with professional interest. "I'm listening," she said. I gave her the basic facts: the lottery ticket, the signature on the back, my daughter's cruel dismissal. She asked intelligent questions, taking notes that I could hear scratching across the paper. "This is fascinating," she said finally. "How do you want to handle it? Carefully, methodically, and with complete documentation?" That evening I sat in my small but elegant apartment, surrounded by the life I had built for myself after my wife's death 5 years earlier. The pearl cufflinks I was wearing had been her last gift to me, and I touched them now like a good luck charm. As I reviewed my strategy, my phone buzzed with a text message from Jessica. "Dad, we need to talk," it read. 5 minutes later, Kevin followed with his own message. "We'll let you keep a cut if you just behave." I took screenshots of both messages and forwarded them to Attorney Wilson's secure email address. In 4 decades of financial administration, I had learned that people's words in moments of stress often revealed their true intentions. These messages would make excellent evidence. I didn't respond to either text. Instead, I muted the conversation thread and continued with my evening routine of a light dinner, some reading, and an early bedtime. Tomorrow would be a very interesting day. At exactly 8:15 a.m., I received an email from the State Lottery Commission. Please present the original ticket for verification of ownership before any winnings can be distributed. The original ticket, of course, was still at Jessica's house, which meant I would need to retrieve it, but I wouldn't be going alone. Documentation is everything, but documentation without a proper chain of custody is completely worthless. I had learned that principle during my years managing financial records, where a single misplaced signature could mean the difference between winning and losing in a malpractice case. At 9:00 a.m. sharp, I walked into Mr. Henderson's corner market with a small digital recorder and a polite smile. Mr. Henderson looked surprised to see me twice in 1 week, but his expression turned to concern when he saw the look on my face. "Mr. Arthur, is everything all right?" he asked. "Mr. Henderson, I need to ask a favor," I said. "Yesterday morning when I bought those 2 lottery tickets, do you remember which one I signed?" His face lit up with understanding. "Oh yes, the one that won. I heard about it on the news." "That's wonderful," he exclaimed. "Actually, there's been some confusion about ownership," I explained. "Would it be possible to review the security footage from yesterday morning?" Mr. Henderson's expression darkened. "Confusion? What kind of confusion?" he asked. I explained the situation simply. The ticket I had signed and purchased was being claimed by others who had told me to get lost and disappear when I questioned them about it. Henderson's face flushed with anger. "They said what to you?" "It's all right, Mr. Henderson," I said. "I just need to establish the truth." Within 10 minutes, Mr. Henderson had burned the relevant footage to a flash drive, clearly showing me purchasing both tickets, signing one, and placing them in my briefcase. The timestamp matched my phone's metadata perfectly. "You take this," Mr. Henderson said, pressing the drive into my hands. "And Mr. Arthur, you give them hell." From the corner market, I drove to the courthouse where Attorney Wilson was waiting for me, with a temporary restraining order signed by Judge Harrison, a woman who had served on the financial board with me for 6 years. The order prevents the Lottery Commission from distributing any winnings until ownership is officially decided, Attorney Wilson explained as we walked toward my car. "But we still need the original ticket." "I know exactly where it is," I said. At 11:00 a.m., I knocked on Jessica's door, accompanied by Deputy Sheriff Miller and carrying a court order that was very specific and legally binding. "Produce and surrender the lottery ticket instrument, bearing the signature of Arthur." Kevin answered the door in a bathrobe, his hair a mess and his eyes red from what looked like a sleepless night. When he saw the deputy, his face went pale. "What's this about?" he demanded. Deputy Sheriff Miller, a professional woman in her 40s, consulted her paperwork with the practiced efficiency of someone who had dealt with similar situations countless times before. "Sir, we have a court order requiring you to produce a specific lottery ticket. The order carries criminal penalties for interference." Jessica appeared from behind Kevin, clutching a coffee mug with shaking hands. "Dad, what are you doing?" she asked. "I'm claiming what's mine," I said simply. "The ticket you are holding was purchased and signed by me. The court order requires you to turn it over." Kevin sputtered something about community property and family assets, but Deputy Miller cut him off. "Sir, would you like me to read you the section about criminal penalties for interfering with a court order?" Jessica disappeared into the house and returned with the lottery ticket, her fingers trembling as she handed it to the deputy. The blue ink of my signature was clearly visible on the back. "Thank you," I said, taking the ticket from Deputy Miller. I'll be sure to let the court know you cooperated. An hour later, I was sitting in the State Lottery Commission offices, while a polite woman examined my signature under a magnifying glass, compared it to my identification, reviewed the time-stamped photographs, and checked Mr. Henderson's security footage. "Everything appears to be in order, Mr. Arthur," she said with a professional smile. "Congratulations on your win." I simply nodded once and signed the necessary paperwork. There was no celebration, no jumping for joy, just the quiet satisfaction of watching proper procedures unfold exactly as they should. From there, I went directly to Attorney Wilson's office, where we set up the Evergreen Trust, an ironclad financial structure with specific protections and a very precise clause. No distributions could ever be made to any individual who had attempted to financially exploit the grantor. Outside the lottery office, a small crowd of reporters had gathered. Reporter Evans stepped forward with her microphone as I walked toward my car. "Mr. Arthur, do you have any comment on today's events?" she asked. I paused, adjusted my pearl cufflinks, and looked directly into the camera. "Documentation protects those who are told to be silent," I said simply. Then I got in my car and drove home, leaving the reporters to make of that what they would. By evening, my phone was buzzing with angry calls and texts from Jessica and Kevin. I let them all go to voicemail. I had more important work to do. The first part of my plan was now complete. It was time to move on to phase 2. Some victories are loud and messy, others are quiet and precise. I have always preferred the precise approach. Clean cuts that heal exactly as intended, leaving no question about what happened or why. The morning after retrieving my lottery ticket, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Kevin and 12 from Jessica. Their voicemails went from angry to desperate to pleading, but I deleted each one without listening to the end. I had heard all I needed to hear when Jessica told me to get lost and disappear. Instead, I spent my morning in productive meetings. The first was with Attorney Wilson to finalize the trust structure. The Evergreen Trust was a masterpiece of legal protection, completely unchangeable with specific provisions that would ensure the money could never be touched by anyone who had attempted to defraud me. More importantly, it established a clear paper trail of Jessica and Kevin's actions, all documented in legal language that would follow them for the rest of their lives. The second meeting was with my financial advisor to discuss investment strategies for a sum of money I never expected to have. $43 million, even after taxes, was more than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the principle of the matter. The third meeting was with a discreet private investigator named Thomas, whose specialty was financial forensics. If Kevin and Jessica had been struggling financially before their attempted lottery grab, I wanted to understand exactly why. Debt consolidation loans, 3 maxed-out credit cards, second mortgage taken 6 months ago, Thomas reported, sliding a manila folder across my desk. Kevin's real estate business has been bleeding money for 2 years. They're about 60 days from bankruptcy. Interesting timing for a lottery ticket theft attempt, I observed. Very interesting. Also interesting. Kevin has been meeting with some unsavory characters about quick money schemes, Thomas continued. Loan sharks, essentially. I filed that information away for later use. For now, I had more immediate concerns. At 2 p.m., I received a call from Kevin's primary mortgage lender. "Mr. Arthur, this is Ms. Rodriguez from First Pacific Lending. I understand you might be interested in purchasing some distressed assets." "I might be," I said. "What did you have in mind?" "The Parker property," she said. Kevin Parker defaulted on payments last month, and we're preparing to foreclose. But if someone wanted to buy the note outright, I smiled. Alone in my apartment with my pearl cufflinks catching the afternoon light. Send me the paperwork. By 4:00 p.m., I was the official owner of the mortgage on Jessica and Kevin's house. It was perfectly legal, financially sound, and absolutely ruthless. I immediately exercised my right to call the loan due in full, a standard clause when loans are sold to new lenders. The notification letter was delivered by a courier at 5:30 p.m. Through my private investigator's contacts, I learned that Kevin answered the door, read the letter, and immediately started calling everyone he knew, trying to raise the money. No one was interested in lending to a man whose lottery ticket fraud attempt was already being discussed on the local news. At 6:00 p.m., I received a call from the sheriff's office. "Mr. Arthur, this is Sergeant Jackson," the voice said. "Your daughter has called to file a harassment complaint. She claims you're using your lottery winnings to destroy her family." "Sergeant," I said calmly, "did she happen to mention that she and her husband attempted to steal my lottery ticket and told me to get lost and disappear when I questioned them about it?" There was a pause. "She did not mention that, no," he said. "I filed a report yesterday, case number 2024-7741. You might want to review it before taking her complaint seriously." "I'll do that, Mr. Arthur. Have a good evening." That evening, I sat in my reading chair with a cup of tea and today's newspaper. Reporter Evan's story had made the front page of the local section, with the headline, "The signature they overlooked, how a 62-year-old man outsmarted a lottery grab." The article was thorough and fair, presenting the facts without sensationalism. It quoted my single statement about documentation protecting those who are told to be silent, included responses from legal experts about the importance of proper signatures on financial documents, and noted that both Jessica and Kevin had declined to comment. The internet, however, was less restrained in its response. Social media was buzzing with support for the lottery grandpa, who had outsmarted his greedy family members. The story was being shared thousands of times, with comments ranging from admiration to outrage, not at me, but at Jessica and Kevin. Their reputations were becoming toxic. My phone rang at 8:00 p.m. Jessica's number appeared on the screen. I answered on the fourth ring. "Dad?" Her voice was small, broken. "Please, we need to talk." "Do we?" I asked. "You can't do this," she said. "You can't take our house." "Your house?" I asked. "I wasn't aware you owned it outright." "You know what I mean. The mortgage, the loan," she cried. "The loan that was in default before I purchased it?" I said. "The loan you defaulted on while you were planning to steal my lottery winnings?" Silence on the other end of the line. "Jessica, you made choices," I said. "You told me to get lost and disappear. You attempted to steal from me. Now you are facing the consequences of those choices." "But we're family," she pleaded. "Family doesn't tell each other to get lost and disappear, sweetheart," I said. "Family doesn't attempt fraud. Family doesn't dismiss their elders as broke old men when they think they found a better option." I hung up before she could respond. 10 minutes later, Kevin called. "Arthur, let's be reasonable here," he said. I hung up immediately and blocked both of their numbers. Some conversations aren't worth having. Some relationships cannot be fixed. Some people show you exactly who they are, and the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for them is to believe them the very first time. By morning, I would own their house. By next week, they would be evicted. And this was only the beginning. The thing about financial pressure is that it reveals character in the same way that heat reveals the true nature of metal. Some people become stronger under stress. Others simply melt. Kevin and Jessica were melting spectacularly. 3 days after I called their loan due, Private Investigator Thomas delivered his follow-up report with the efficiency of a coroner presenting autopsy results. Kevin's real estate license is under review by the state board, Thomas explained, settling into the chair across from my desk. Seems there were some irregular transactions last year. Properties sold to shell companies, inflated appraisals, that sort of thing. How irregular? I asked. The kind that attracts attention from the state attorney general's office, he said. They've opened a full investigation. I adjusted my pearl bracelet thoughtfully. And Jessica lost her job yesterday, he added. Her employer cited reputational concerns affecting client relationships. Apparently, having your attempted lottery fraud broadcast on local news isn't good for business in the pharmaceutical sales industry. I felt a brief flash of something that might have been sympathy for my daughter, but then I remembered her voice telling me to get lost and disappear, and the feeling vanished. There's more, Thomas continued. Kevin has been reaching out to some questionable people for emergency loans. The kind of people who don't accept "I don't have it" as a valid reason for non-payment. How questionably? The kind that break legs first and ask questions later. That afternoon I made 2 phone calls. The first was to the country club where Jessica and Kevin had maintained a membership they couldn't afford. I spoke with the membership coordinator, a pleasant woman named Mrs. Collins, who had known me for 15 years through my work on the financial board. Mrs. Collins, I said, I wanted you to be aware that there is currently a civil investigation involving the Parkers and attempted fraud. I thought the membership committee should know before any incidents reflect poorly on the club. Oh my goodness, Mr. Arthur, she said. I had no idea. Thank you for letting us know. The second call was to Kevin's real estate agency, where I spoke with the managing partner. This is Arthur, I said. I believe you should know that one of your agents, Kevin Parker, is currently under investigation for attempted fraud involving lottery winnings. I thought you might want to review any recent transactions. By evening, Kevin and Jessica had been suspended from their country club membership, pending the resolution of their legal matters, and Kevin had been placed on administrative leave from his real estate agency while the allegations were investigated. Their social circle was rapidly shrinking. I learned all of this through my network of contacts. In a city this size, a person's reputation travels fast, and mine had always been impeccable. Jessica and Kevin's reputations, on the other hand, were quickly becoming toxic. That evening, I had an unexpected visitor. Through my peephole, I saw Jessica standing in my hallway, holding an overnight bag and looking like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door but left the chain engaged. What do you want, Jessica? Dad, please, she said. Can I come in just for a few minutes? I studied my daughter's face. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was a mess, and there was a desperation in her eyes that made her look both younger and older at the same time. Why? I asked. Because I have nowhere else to go, she said. I thought about it for a moment. What about Kevin? I asked. He's dealing with some business issues, she replied. I just need a place to think, to figure things out. Did you come here to apologize? She shifted uncomfortably. I came here because you're my father. Interesting, I said. 3 days ago, you told your father to get lost and disappear. Today, you need that same father's help. Dad, please, she said. Jessica, look at me, I said. She raised her eyes to meet mine. Do you understand what you did wrong? A long pause. We took your lottery ticket, she said. Try again. We assumed it was ours, she said. Try again. Another pause. This one longer. We were cruel to you, she said. Getting warmer, I said. But still not quite there. "I don't know what you want me to say," she said. "I want you to understand that when you told me to get lost and disappear, you revealed who you really are when you think you have power over someone," I said. "That revelation can't be taken back, Jessica. It can't be apologized for." "So, you're going to destroy us?" she asked. "I'm going to let the consequences of your choices play out naturally," I said. "There's a big difference. You bought our mortgage," she accused. "I bought a defaulted loan. The default happened before I ever got involved." "You're just splitting hairs," she cried. "I'm being precise," I said. "Precision matters." I closed the door and engaged the deadbolt. 20 minutes later, I watched from my window as Jessica walked back to her car, her overnight bag dragging behind her like a broken tail. The next morning, reporter Evans called to request another interview. "The story has gotten national attention," she explained. "People are fascinated by how you handled the situation." "What kind of interview?" I asked. "Just a few questions about documentation, signatures, and protecting yourself from family fraud," she said. "Nothing sensational." I agreed to meet her at a public location, the lobby of the downtown Marriott, which was elegant and had good lighting for cameras. The interview was brief and professional. I wore my best navy suit and my full pearl cufflink set. My silver hair was styled in an elegant chignon that my hairdresser had perfected over 20 years. "Mr. Arthur," she said, looking directly at the camera, "what advice would you give to other older adults who might be facing family financial abuse?" "Document everything," I said, looking straight into the camera. "Keep records, know your rights, and never let anyone convince you that age makes you powerless." "Any message for Jessica and Kevin?" she asked. I smiled, the same controlled expression that had served me well in financial board meetings when dealing with difficult decisions. "Actions have consequences," I said simply. "That's not cruelty. That's just how the world works." The interview aired that evening during the dinner news. By morning, it had been picked up by 3 national networks. I was becoming more famous than I had ever intended to be. But fame, I was learning, could be a very useful tool. Eviction is a process, not a sudden event. It unfolds with the methodical precision of legal machinery, where each step is documented, each deadline is absolute, and each consequence is inevitable. I gave Kevin and Jessica 30 days to leave the property I now owned. The law required it, and I've always been meticulous about following proper procedures. They used those 30 days very poorly. Private investigator Thomas's surveillance reports painted a picture of 2 people in complete denial about their situation. Kevin spent his days making increasingly desperate phone calls to contacts who were no longer taking his calls. Jessica drove around the city looking at rental properties they couldn't possibly afford with their current credit rating and employment status. Neither of them attempted to pack or prepare for what was coming. "They're hosting parties," Thomas reported during our weekly meeting. "Loud ones. The neighbors have filed 3 noise complaints in the past week." I reviewed the police reports, noting the times, dates, and specific violations. Each complaint was another documented infraction, another justification for accelerating the eviction proceedings. "What kind of parties?" I asked. "The desperate kind," he said. "Kevin is trying to maintain the illusion that everything's fine, that they're still the lottery winners everyone thinks they are. He's telling people the ticket dispute is just a technicality. But fewer and fewer people believe him each day, especially after your national television interview." That interview had indeed changed things. I had received calls from reporters as far away as California, all wanting to discuss the lottery signature case that was becoming a cautionary tale about family greed and the importance of proper documentation. More importantly, For my immediate purposes, the coverage had made Jessica and Kevin local celebrities, the kind of celebrities people pointed at in grocery stores while whispering about their attempted fraud. Their social isolation was becoming complete. On day 27 of their 30-day notice period, I received a call from the Neighborhood Association president. "Mr. Arthur, I hope you don't mind me calling directly. We have some concerns about the Parker property." "What kind of concerns?" I asked. "Loud music until 3 in the morning. Cars parked on the lawns. Trash not picked up," she said. "The neighbors are getting upset." "I understand completely," I said. "I'll address the situation immediately." I called my attorney and had the eviction process accelerated due to nuisance violations and lease infractions. Instead of 3 more days, Kevin and Jessica now had only 24 hours. The notice was served by a sheriff's deputy at 8 a.m. the next morning. I wasn't there to see their faces, but Thomas's surveillance recorded Kevin punching a hole in the living room wall and Jessica collapsing on the front porch steps, sobbing. By noon, a moving truck arrived, not to help them relocate, but to remove their belongings to a storage facility they couldn't afford to maintain for the long term. By 6:00 p.m., the locks were changed. That evening, I drove past the house that was now mine, a modest colonial in a decent neighborhood that I had visited hundreds of times as a grandfather and a guest. It looked smaller, somehow, emptier, as if it were holding its breath. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt methodical. The next morning brought an unexpected phone call from Kevin's mother, Mrs. Collins, a woman I had known casually through church and community events. "Arthur, I hope you'll forgive the intrusion, but I need to speak with you about Kevin and Jessica." "Of course, Mrs. Collins," I said. "What's on your mind?" "They're staying with us temporarily. And well, Kevin is talking about fighting this somehow, taking you to court, claiming elder abuse, that sort of thing." I almost laughed. "Elder abuse? I know it sounds ridiculous, but he's desperate, Arthur," she said. "And desperate people make poor decisions." "What are you asking me to do?" "I'm asking you to be careful," she said. "Kevin has been drinking heavily, and he's making threats." "What kind of threats?" "The kind that worry a mother," she said. After hanging up, I called Private Investigator Thomas and increased my security measures. If Kevin was becoming unpredictable, I needed to be prepared. That afternoon, I received a visit from Detective Sarah Martinez of the Financial Crimes Unit, following up on my original complaint about the attempted lottery fraud. "Mr. Arthur," she said, "we've completed our investigation. Kevin and Jessica Parker will be facing formal charges: attempted fraud, conspiracy, and elder financial abuse." "Elder financial abuse?" I asked. "Their text messages to you constitute attempted financial coercion of a senior citizen," she explained. "It's a felony in this state." I poured Detective Martinez a cup of coffee and settled into my chair, my pearl cufflinks catching the afternoon light. "What happens now?" I asked. "Arraignment is scheduled for next week," she said. "Given their current financial situation, I doubt they'll make bail." After she left, I sat quietly in my apartment, considering the path of events I had set in motion 3 weeks ago. I had been a dismissed old man told to just get lost and disappear. Now, I owned my tormentor's house. Their former employers wouldn't hire them. Their friends had abandoned them, and they were facing criminal charges. The transformation was remarkable in its completeness. That evening, I called Mr. Henderson at the corner market. "Mr. Arthur," he said, "I saw you on the national news. You're famous." "I never intended to be famous, Mr. Henderson," I said. "I just intended to be right." "Well, you sure showed them," he said. "Nobody should talk to their father like that. You should have heard the stories they were spreading around town about you." "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," I said. "I just wanted to ask, Have you seen them around recently? Kevin came in yesterday trying to buy cigarettes with a credit card that got declined, he said. He looked rough, Mr. Arthur, real rough. After hanging up, I made one final call of the day to my attorney to discuss the next phase. The mathematics of justice are remarkably simple. Actions create reactions. Choices generate consequences. And people who mistake a man's kindness for a man's weakness learn that mistake comes at a steep cost. I have paid my dues to family loyalty. I have sacrificed enough for people who didn't value the sacrifice. I have been generous to those who responded to generosity with cruelty. Now, I live for myself, by myself, with the absolute certainty that no one will ever again be able to dismiss me as a broke old man who should just get lost and disappear. Because I didn't get lost and disappear. I have thrived. And that, more than any revenge, is the most perfect justice of all. People say revenge is a dish best served cold. They're wrong. Revenge isn't a dish at all. It's a system, and when it's built correctly, it runs without you. If this story of triumph over betrayal has inspired you, please consider hitting the like button on this video and subscribing for more stories that show the power of being prepared. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim your power and show the world who you really are.